Hey, it's Linda Kaye and Money Talk. And today I have got an unbelievable guest for all of us to get some good information and some good feeling out of that interview. And before I introduce him, I really want to talk about, when you've shadowed somebody all of your life, it's sometimes hard to step outside the shadow when the shadow disappears. Well, I will tell you, my guest is having no problem whatsoever doing that because he's got a brand new book, and I'm going to let him talk about it. But right now, what I'm going to do is ask you to do two things. One is stay tuned, right? And stay with me. And if you like what you hear, you like what you see, share it, like it, subscribe to it. But moreover, stay tuned. Be right back. Linda gave me the courage, the confidence to move forward.
And after I was finished with Linda Kaye's training, I was at the next level.
It's Linda Kaye. When you trust that piece of you that says, I got something to give, I have something to say, you know you've got something to do.
Get on your feet, shake your hands in the air. Welcome to the stage, Linda Kaye.
So I did promise you a really nice surprise, and I will not disappoint you. Now, when I think about Money Talk, and many of you that are first-time listeners, Money Talk is really a show that is talking about how to improve your life and how to improve the life of others. And what your life and your service and your product is will help others improve their life. And with no exception, I will tell you that my next guest will be able to tell you many ways in which he's done this, living in the shadows of dad, coming out of the shadows of dad, and writing his own story. Please join me with Brian Proctor. Hey, Brian.
Hello there, Linda.
I'm so delighted that you're here. And I know that many people have heard you speak and have heard you talk about your book. And before we get to that book, I think you've got a story right behind you. And it's a picture. Can you tell me about that picture?
Well, that's actually a painting. That is a painting of my father, Bob Proctor, speaking. My mother-in-law painted that for me. She's an artist. And gosh, it was probably 3 months ago now. She surprised that for me as a little gift. And it was like, I had to put that in my office right behind me.
Oh my gosh, definitely. Were you ever on stage with your dad?
I was on stage with him quite a bit. Yeah.
So when you were on stage with him, were you facilitating him or were you facilitating your audience? What's the difference?
Yeah, well, when I was on stage with him, I was just sharing stories that were relevant to whatever he was teaching at the time, that could help the audience really take a look at what the lesson was and get a better understanding of how they could apply it in their life. So I was really just sharing stories, and that's kind of what I did with the book that you're talking about. Is I've just shared stories of growing up with Bob Proctor as a father and how that impacted me and how I used the lessons that he taught me to basically myself live a better life.
What's the name of your book?
The name of the book is My Father Knew the Secret, Growing Up with Bob Proctor.
So now it's sort of a double entendre, isn't it? Because your dad was very involved with The Secret. Now, before we get there, you were born around the same time your dad was kind of getting into this, Think and Grow Rich. But he had a different attitude about the Think and Grow Rich. He didn't think you could just sit and think about it. What did he think?
Yeah, here was the cool thing with my father. He was all about taking action. He said there's so many people out there that just, if they feel if they just think about this, they're going to attract it into their life, or they're going to bring it into their life. He was of the vein that, yes, you definitely have to think about it. You have to imagine and vision it. But that beyond that, you've got to step out and take action. If you really want to bring something into your life, you need to do something about it. You can't just think about it.
That's a funny point. When I was speaking publicly recently, I come out with $20 bills. Sometimes I come out with $100 bill, and I say, "Who wants $100 bill? Who wants 100? Who wants 20?" And everybody goes, "Oh, I want it! I want it! I want it!" and I won't take a measure of step towards them. I need them to get up and take the step towards it. So few people are willing to do that. And I think that when your dad also became involved with the secret, and that was colossal. I don't know what year this was. I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but how did that project come about?
Well, it was a really interesting thing. So I can tell you when that came out. It came out in 2006. And it was really interesting. The whole movie, for anybody that's watched it, it's all around the law of attraction and what we think we bring into our life. And
like as a man thinketh, so he attracts, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And my father had his assistant, Gina Hayden. He called her up and he said to her, he said, Gina, I've got a whole bunch of messages on my phone. I'm running to another meeting. I need help getting some of this stuff cleared off. And he said, there's a message on here from somebody. I think her name is Glenda from Australia, but it's kind of scratchy. And, can you check all this out for me? And so she did. Well, Glenda ended up being Rhonda Byrne's sister. Rhonda Byrne is the creator of The Secret.
Yep.
And Glenda had been trying to reach my father for over a month. They were filming the movie The Secret. They were filming it in Aspen, Colorado, and they were filming it the following weekend. Well, you want to talk about law of attraction? My father was going to be in Aspen, Colorado that very weekend.
Oh my goodness, what a coincidence. And I like to say there's no coincidences in life, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well,
you're where you're supposed to be.
And that's the interesting thing. He had only ever been in Aspen one time previously. So, you talk about the law of attraction. This is a great way of it showing itself. So he said, yeah, he'd be happy to take part. He literally had to just walk across the street, get in front of the camera, film for an hour, and then he was done.
Amazing.
And that was it. He had no idea what he was getting into. But here was the cool thing with my father. He was always willing to share the material in whatever way he could. That was his mission. And he felt that they were honoring that. They were trying to get the message out around personal development, around the law of attraction. And so he was willing to take part. The interesting thing was they weren't paying any of the speakers to be in the movie. And several of the people refused to be in it because they weren't going to be paid. And my father was all about, let's just get the information out there. We'll all be rewarded if we do the work. We get it out there. And I look at him and I think, wow, my father had been in the industry for years. He was really a pioneer in the personal development industry.
Right.
And The Secret came out when he was 72 years old. So he had been working in this industry for 40 years, doing well, but never really making it to huge levels. Well, The Secret propelled him to new levels.
It skyrocketed his career, didn't it?
It really did. I mean, from that, he got on to Larry King, Ellen DeGeneres, all kinds of places that really showcased who he was to the general public. And it was a big deal.
It's interesting because he was known in some circles, but not in the mainstream circle. You had Brian Tracy, you had Tony Robbins, who was just coming up at that time. And you have everybody looking to make a name for themselves. And I wouldn't say it was sort of a Me Too generation, but it was definitely, you needed to make a mark. And so in order to really stand out, you needed to get people's attention. Your dad was very low key in getting that attention. And I like to think of what he did, just like it is in your book, teaching you core values.
Right.
Because so many people don't have those core values or they weren't raised with core values that would resonate with a successful life. What did an average day look like for you getting up in the morning and starting your day with Dad?
As a youngster?
Yeah.
Well, when I go back to early, I'll give you a nice story, Linda. Here's my earliest memory of my father. And this, for any parents that are watching, this is invaluable. When I was young and Dad was home, he was the one that tucked me into bed. And, these are some of my earliest memories of him. And I remember laying in bed, getting ready to go to sleep, and Dad would come in the room. He'd sit on the edge of the bed and he would put his hand on my chest he always said we need to have that physical connection. That's where,
Mm.
everything's delivered physically, just with that connection. And he would start to talk about my day, and he would talk about all the good things that I did that day, all the good that was happening. And if there was anything bad that happened, he would have me look for the good in it. He always had me, rather than focus on the negative and feel bad about something, he'd have me look for the good in it or the lesson out of it. Then he would basically end the evening by saying, Brian, you are capable of being, doing, or having anything you want in this world. When you go to
Oh,
sleep, you're going to have a great sleep. You're going to wake up with a smile on your face, feeling wonderful and having a great day. And that's,
what a way to go to sleep and to awaken with that joy of what the last thought was that you went to bed with. How did that impact you?
well, it impacted me in a really powerful way. It developed my self-image for sure. It made me feel really good about myself. It made me feel valued. And it was just it was a great way to set up a strong self-image in a young person. And the best part was then I took that and I did it with my children. And as they grew up, they were the same. I never had any issues with the kids when they're through teenage years, no problems. They were just well-adjusted, well-centered, had a really strong self-image. And the fun part now, Linda, is that I have grandchildren now, and I see my daughter doing that with her two kids. And it's just
The
it's a
lesson that
wonderful
your
thing.
dad left, and that you could live that same lesson and that value. That value is not just the, gee, it felt good and dad, made his connection with me, but the value and the core value of that I need to give that, move that forward, give that to other people, because why keep that to yourself when the joy of that was what it did for you, right?
Right. Well, the interesting thing is he wasn't brought up that way. But because he studied this material, I guess, myself, my brother, my sister, we were his lab, for lack of better words. And, he really created generational change. He changed the way I look at everything. And because of that, I was able to change my kids and now the grandchildren.
And
So
that's
it's,
one of the things that he taught also. And I want to say it was paradigm shift. And a lot of people talk about paradigm shift. See, he had a very specific agenda with paradigm shift. Can you talk about that?
yeah, the whole paradigm shift event was really, we all have paradigms, good and bad. And paradigms are just really our attitudes and the way we look at things. And so we were basically given our paradigms by our parents, primarily, certainly by some of our surroundings as we're growing up, but a lot of it is by our parents. And dad was always of the opinion that we can alter our paradigms with focus of thought. And we ran these paradigm shift events to show people how they can change their paradigms for the better if they have, ones that they want to change. And he would really show people how the mind worked and how you can impress change within yourself to create a new life and create a new way of looking at things. And so really that whole paradigm shift event was all about changing paradigms for the better, creating better habits, creating a better way to live and a better way to, do business and treat people around us.
Why did he think that was so important? And why do you think that's so important? Because you've carried that tradition on.
Well, I think it's important because, if we want to be effective in this world, we need to have good daily habits. And Dad he had impressed on me from a very young age that our morning routines and the habits that we form are going to dictate how we live and move in this world. And if we can create some really powerful habits that really zero in on what we want to achieve, and keep us focused on that, we're going to live a better life.
So I'll
And
bet sleeping in till 10 and hanging out with the local kids down at the corner were not part of that routine.
they were not part of that routine. No. He was always of when you wake up, you get up. And I don't know, I've certainly adapted that. I don't laze around in bed in the morning. I get up as soon as I wake up, and I get zeroed in right away on what is my goal. I write out my goal every day, keep me focused on it.
Do you change your goals? Do your goals change on a daily basis?
No, my goal stays pretty much the same way. Sometimes I have to change the date of which I wanted to achieve it if I set the wrong date, but the goal is pretty much the same until I reach it. If it's a worthy enough goal, you're not going to change it. You know, that's
I
kind of
think
where.
I think that what you just said is possibly one of the most important things about the mind and the mindset, because we all have goals, right? I want to be this or I want to do that. Without any specificity in it, without any traction in that, it's just a lofty thought. It's a goal.
Right.
It's the actions that we take. It's the intention that we put behind it. But there's something else that you yourself found was one of the most important keys, and I'm probably gonna leave it out there and see if you can guess what that was.
Well, I'm not quite sure where you're leading with it, but I'll say where I feel it is I I actually challenge that a lot of people don't have goals. They have dreams there or primarily wishes, maybe. I wish my life was like this. But if we have a worthy goal, a goal that inspires us, it's
That's the
the
word I was looking for.
oh, is it okay? Well, there we go. So
Ding, 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 you win.
well, the deal with a goal is it should be something that you don't know how to achieve, but it needs to be something that truly inspires you. And if
Give me
that's,
an example.
yeah, plain and simple. And if it inspires you, it's going to cause you to step out and do things in a day you would never normally do. And that is the power of a worthy goal. And by doing that, you're going to change your life. You're going to grow. Dad always said that a goal is not to get, a goal is to grow along the way. The getting of the goal, the achieving of the goal is a bonus. But the growth that we incur going towards it is really something, if it's a worthy goal.
And so when you think about a worthy goal, what are some of the things around, what are some of the parameters around it that you haven't done it before, it's never been done, or that you have this burning desire, like you and your wife wanted to build the house, right? You wanted
Right.
the house that you got at Puget Sound. Talk me through your individual goals and then your collective goals with your wife in building that house, because that's an important step. Because we think about goals, and husband and wives think about goals, and maybe that goal it is going to get more traction when we do more of that work on ourselves to contribute towards that goal, right?
Right. Well, the first thing that's really important is that when you set a goal that you don't know how you're going to get there, if you already know how you're going to get there, it's really not a worthy goal. It's something you already know how to achieve.
Yeah, it's not inspiring, right?
That's right. It might be fun, but it's not going to inspire you to do things differently because you already know how to get there. So I'll share that. Yeah, my wife and I, we had a goal a couple of years ago. And I can remember sitting with my father. We were living in Florida at the time, and I was sitting with him. He came down for a visit, and we went out for lunch, and I was talking to him. I said, Dad, we bought this place. It was right on Puget Sound. The house itself is literally like 15 feet from the water. But it was a bit of a teardown. It needed a lot of work. So I said, what we're really wanting to do is basically tear it down and build a whole new house. We had to stay obviously on the footprint and all that kind of stuff, but it was going to be very, very expensive. And we did not want to get a mortgage, wanted to make it happen. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it. And I remember I was starting to talk to him about all the things I could potentially do to earn extra sums of money to make it happen. And I remember
You're
Dad
outside of your normal box. You're thinking, what are the possibilities? Where can I get the money? Because I think a lot of people get really stuck going, I got a day job. That's all I'm ever going to have. And I can't, we can do more than we think we can.
We definitely can. We definitely can. Well, the first thing Dad said to me, he just looked at me with this knowing smile because we've had this conversation on many occasions. And he said to me, he said, Brian, you know that you don't need to figure it all out right here, right now. All you got to think about is this what you truly want? You don't need to know how you're going to get there right now, but is it what you really want? And if it is,
how, it's the what.
It's the what. And he says, then you need to make a committed decision. That's it. And I looked at him and said, you know what, Dad, you're right. I need to make a committed decision that I'm going to do it. And we did. We made a committed decision, and then we figured it out. We just kept taking steps every day to figure it out. And like you say, a lot of folks, you could be watching this and you're in a job and you're thinking, well, I can't earn any extra money. I've got a salary and that's what they give me. Well, I challenge you to think differently. Dad was always about creating multiple sources of income. And, Linda, you've got a great example. You're hosting a podcast. You're doing all kinds of different things. Mm-hmm. Some things will draw you big incomes. Some will be little incomes. It doesn't matter. As long as you find something you're passionate about, you can start a side business that's outside of regular work hours. You might not earn a lot immediately, but my gosh, if you're passionate about it and you keep at it, and you only worked at it a half an hour to an hour a day of focused attention, my gosh, 6 months from now, where are you going to be? Who knows?
Oh my gosh, and that's huge because, when I first started the podcast, and it was Ken Walls that said, you got to do one and you got to do it every day. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even think about doing it once a week. What are you talking about? And then it was, what do I want it to be? What do I want it to talk about? And it was the what, it wasn't the how. Mm-hmm. And when I first started this, I was god awful. It was difficult. It was, I'm going to guess it was painful to watch, even though I have a gift of gab, Brian. I do like to talk. Being confused or not being organized in your thoughts when you're interviewing somebody can show up and make your guest uncomfortable too. Mm-hmm. But in the willingness to make your mistakes, in the willingness, be willing to fall forward.
Right.
That's where your growth comes.
Absolutely. Here was something that I loved about my father is that when he got an idea for something, he stepped out and took action around it. And I like to call it sometimes imperfect action. So many people, if they think of something else they can do, they think they've got to make a plan, and they plan and they plan and they plan, but they never step out and do anything about it.
Oh, and it's got to be perfect before you can even execute it, and you're not going to be successful at it. And so they put all of these barriers behind. I wanted to do that, but I just couldn't get it going.
Right.
Your dad had probably had some methods that he employed as well that would make him take certain steps. We always think, oh, well, I've got to take this whole elephant down, but you only have to eat the elephant a bite at a time.
Right.
And take bites, right?
Well, and that's the deal. That's why we call it imperfect action. At least if you're stepping out into it and doing something about it, you're working your way there. It might not be the perfect way. I can think of many times in my life that I did things that were not the perfect way of getting there, but because I stepped out and started taking action, I found the way as I went, and I got there.
You were willing. You were willing to take action. You were also willing to be exposed for, I don't know how to do it. I'm not perfect. I'm not excellent at this. You were willing to do it, and I think that's key, because imperfect actions still take those actions. And then you figure if you made a mistake, hey, you can go back and fix it. You're not going to do that again. You're going to do something different the next time.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, having written a book with my mom, she was 87 at the time. Today, she's 92, and we're working on our second book.
Nice.
And when mom was 87, she went blind. And I told her that, Mom, you may have gone blind, but you haven't lost your vision. Mm-hmm. And, the sense of purpose, the sense of belonging, the sense of wanting to give, I think that stays with us throughout our entire life. And, all the way through your dad's life, this happened as well. I didn't know how to write a book. I had no idea. I mean, I was like, okay, well, at least I had a common thought of, well, each one should be about 15 pages long, written or typed, and it came out. Who knew that it was going to be 300 pages by the time we had finished it? Like, we just got in and got started, and Mom said, well, did you notice that I'm blind? I can't really write a book. So we start thinking about limitations, right? And I'm like, well, I've got eyes. I can be your eyes, right? And so when we refuse to let the limitations that are before us not stop us, not hinder us, imagine what we can do. But you started writing your book. Your book was 4 years in the making. Right. You spent an incredible amount of time with your dad. And I want to get into that just a little bit about how and when and why you got involved, because I know you have your own marketing skills and your own business sense that helped propel him as well from, at a time when nobody knew what building lists was. And that's all we talk about today, right? You were a pioneer in this. Is that how you started working with your dad, or you were just tagging along and go, well, I got a story here. Let me get up on stage with you, Dad. I mean, tell me the genesis of this.
Yeah, I really started out in the marketing end. I come from a real estate background. I was a real estate agent in Canada for quite a few years. And my father had been trying to talk me into coming and working with him in the company for several years. And I finally caved in, and I did back around 2000 or 1999, somewhere in there.
Wow. So you really had your own career going. You were doing your own thing.
Yeah. And so I started working with him. Well, I started selling seminars. I started, going to a city prior to us doing a seminar. This was really kind of before the internet had a lot of hold on anything.
Sure.
And, I'd go into real estate offices, insurance offices, whatever it was, do a presentation to sell these people to come into one of our programs. And Linda, I hated it. I wasn't enjoying myself. And I said to Dad, I said, you know what? This is not what I want to do. I'm not enjoying myself. Right. And here was his interesting response. He says, then don't do it. He says, find another way that you can contribute. That was it. And I thought, wow, okay, that's kind of interesting. So that's when I came up with an idea on a way. What worked for me in real estate, I'll just go backwards a little bit. What worked for me in real estate was that I always stayed in touch with my clients, past clients and everything. I always found it amazing how many real estate agents sell somebody a house and then are never in touch with them.
Never reach them out again. I am in the commercial real estate field, and I understand this so well. And I greatly appreciate the quality and the value of having legacy clients, people that will come back to you over and over again because of the value that they had. So you got that very early on. You understood that they may not be ready to buy a house today, but in a couple of years they will. And they don't need to just hear from me when I think they're ready to buy again. I'm going to stay in touch and create value.
Right.
How did that, so explain how that morphed into, I'm going to do the same thing and bring value for my dad.
Well, so for me, that with the whole piece with the real estate was that, not only staying in touch with somebody, the value of it that, you could potentially sell them a house down the road, but by staying in touch, you create a relationship and trust. And because of that, you're going to get referrals. You're not working with just that one person. You're working with that one person and their circle of influence, because if they really like you and see that you're delivering value, they're going to refer you to their friends, relatives, whoever. So it's a
no greater amount of influence than to have a referral from an inside person. This isn't just a cold lead. It's more than just a warm lead. It is an endorsement. And that's really, people forget this.
Exactly. And so that always amazed me. Anyway, so when I started to think, okay, what can I do that's going to create value? This is back in 2000. I started thinking, well, email is starting to become a bit of a thing. Maybe there's a way that I can stay in touch with all of our clients via email that doesn't cost anything, but that has value. And so I came up with a program that was kind of like a quote of the day program. Monday to Thursday, I would just send out an inspiring quote. That was it. Every Friday was an uplifting story. And it wasn't like it took a lot, but it delivered value for free. And this was long before quote of the day services were out there, or even anybody was starting to capture emails. And it was very, very well received. We started with about 300 people. Well, that list now is into the millions. And it grew because it was delivering value with something very simple. And it set the foundation for my father's company, that when that movie, The Secret, did come out, we were set and ready to capture everybody's email address, deliver value, and go with it. Whereas a lot of the other people that were in that movie didn't have anything to capture emails or anything. This was before a lot of that was common.
Right. Before funnels and click funnels and all the other things that people use today to try to capture and then nurture. You were already into this nurturing concept when you started sending out the emails. But this just really, it goes to show that, if you're not doing something that you like, you need to stop it
Right.
and go find something that you do like to do and bring value. And that's what you did. The fact that you could do, you could bring something that was really yours and bring value to him, that took you guys to a whole different level.
Yeah.
Talk to me for a second about the book. How tough was that for you to go back and for me, writing the book with my mom, I can ask her questions and I have that interaction. Were you having interactions with your dad in your mind when you were writing?
So yeah, when I started writing this book, it was it was over 4 years ago now, and my father was alive. And when I started writing it, the big thing that I was always asked Linda at every seminar, hundreds if not thousands of seminars, every time I was at them, everybody come up to me and was like, "Wow, what's it like having Bob Proctor as a father?" And to me, he was dad, so it's just kind of a normal thing. But I realized that I could write a book on what it's like having Bob Proctor as a father. And I thought, I'm going to write something that is from the son's perspective, the private life perspective of what does Bob Proctor, what does he teach his son? What are the secrets? What are the lessons that he taught me as his son? And I thought, wow, there's going to be value there for people. So that's what I started to write about. And Dad and I are both early morning people. It wouldn't be uncommon to find us, at 5 o'clock in the morning on the phone chatting with each other. And
hopefully you were in the same time zone.
We were in the same time zone at that time, yes. And I would share with him what I was writing about. I would send him a chapter or a few paragraphs, and he'd love it. And then we'd start talking about something else. And I would ask him questions around certain topics, why we did something, and it really was food for thought for what I was writing. So it was really great.
Really, it is totally the genesis for that. And then, obviously not knowing that you were going to lose your father before you actually published that book. Are there things that you wish that he could have known before he left this world?
I would have loved for him to see the book and for him to see the response that I've gotten from it, the feedback I've gotten. My God, if you just go to Amazon and look at the reviews,
we're going to go to Amazon. In fact, one of my VAs, we're going to put the link for the book into the chat, so everybody can click on it if they're watching this live, or if they're watching it pre-recorded, you can click on that link. And let's have it roll across the bottom of the page again, Ron. Yeah, there we go. So this is My Father Knew the Secret Growing Up. He had you dialed in, and he had you dialed onto that platform that was really the hope and inspiration for everybody that would ever think about having a relationship with their parent, being able to work with their parent, and you still talk with them. Yeah. And I understand that value because my mom and I are very, very close. She thinks I'm her best friend, and I think that she's mine. So, I can greatly appreciate what that is for you. I think some of the things that you had some tough times growing up because, as I recall, you probably moved at least 5 or 6 times before you were even 9 years old. What was one of the things that your dad gave you to be able to overcome that anxiety as a kid of having to go to yet one more new place?
Well, great question. It's, I look back and I think of this one lesson in particular. And, it came back to me, we're talking about real estate. It came back to me in my real estate days that I actually realized what I was doing. It was 1988. I was in a seminar in Palm Desert with, you may know him, Mike Ferry. He was a real estate trainer.
Yes, very much so.
And there was about 2,000 real estate agents in the room, and I was sitting right at the front row. Well, Mike, and this was my first year in the business, Mike had heard what I was doing, and he invited me up on stage, and I was a little unprepared. I didn't know what to expect.
Wow.
And Mike was sharing with the audience how I was like rookie of the year and how many sales I was doing right out of the gate. And he said to me, he said, can you share with the audience what it is that you're doing? What is making a difference? Why are you so successful so quickly? Yeah. And Linda, it took me back to when I was 9 years old. And this is what made me so successful. When I was 9, we had just moved to Chicago. And, as you'd mentioned, I can tell you've read the book. I had moved around several times. I was born in Toronto. started school in Toronto. Then we moved to England. So I started a new school there. We moved
Wow.
back to a different part of Toronto, had to start a new school there. Then we moved to Chicago. So by grade 4, I'm already in my 4th school. I was that perpetual new kid in school. And, you know, it was
Never
uncomfortable.
fun. Yeah, never fun.
So I remember sitting with Dad, and I can take myself back to the moment. I remember sitting on the ottoman in front of a chair of his in the den, and I said to him, I said, Dad, I am just really nervous of starting a new school again. And he said to me this. He says, Brian, all you need to do is put these 4 letters across the forehead of whoever you're speaking to when you go to school, MMFI. And what it stands for is make me feel important. If you can make everybody you're engaged with feel important, feel seen, feel heard, you're going to make friends in a hurry, and you're not going to be that new kid for long. And that's it. He liked to call it the impression of increase. And that is, what can you do to make anybody you come in contact with feel better today because they came in contact with you? That's it. And that's what I did in real estate. I realized that on that stage that day is that's what I did. I made everybody feel important. And because of that, they wanted to deal with me.
Sure they did.
Yeah,
Because
it's
you
a
were so
great
important.
way to live.
Oh my goodness.
We can do that with anybody, Linda. You know, we can be in front of somebody that we're not even that particularly big on. We can always find something to compliment them about. And there's always some way that you can touch somebody and make them feel better because they were in your presence. And
Oh
if
my
you
goodness.
focus
Yeah.
on them rather than on you, you're going to get on in this world in a great way.
You know, I think you bring up a really good point, because many salespeople look at an opportunity of what's in it for me, right? They don't look at it as what's in it for them, and what, you know, what can make them feel important, that they're part of the process. People love to buy, but they hate to be sold, right?
Right.
And when we come at our business with, you know, I just want to make a sale, or I just want to do something, it's red. It's almost like it's like an infrared that other people feel. They're totally repelled by it.
Yeah.
And they don't see that. So I think that's a really, really key thing. When and I don't know when you started this, but you started something with your wife called Kelly Proctor Co. Can you talk to me about it?
Yeah, that's really just our company. My wife's maiden name is Kelly, so we call it Kelly Proctor Co. And we self-published our book. We were looking at several publishers, and they weren't going to provide anything better than what we could do ourselves. So I thought, why?
Hallelujah. You're so absolutely right. In fact, you'd have to give up a lot.
Exactly. And I had a few publishers that were interested. And when I told them what my goal was, they looked at me like I was nuts. You know,
What was your goal?
how many copies of the books I wanted to sell. Well, that was a red flag right away. I thought, if they don't have a vision, well,
If
then
they can't share my vision, I don't want them to diminish mine.
exactly. So Kelly Proctor Co. was just formed as a company that you know, we use for, you know, corporate reasons, but it is you know, for publisher of our book. I do speaking at different events, and so, you know, that is our company. It's really all around self-development, living a better life, and, you know, improving the way we live.
Yeah, I think that, you know, some people would look at your life and say you have a graced life. Would you agree with that statement?
I do. You know, I always say I live a charmed life. I really do. And I realize I was lucky, you know, having Bob Proctor as a father. But that being said, you know, Dad never gave me anything. I had to earn it. I had to do it. But what he did give me was some valuable lessons and knowledge that enabled me to live this charmed life. And so, you know, I've taken everything that he taught me to heart, and I practice and use it in my life to live this charmed life that I'm living. And the best part, Linda, is I literally put it all in the book. And I put it in such a simple, easy way that anybody can understand it and take the lessons and apply it in your life right now to alter your life for the better. Whether it's great or not so great, it can always be better. And that's really what it's all about.
When you and thank you for that. When you're out speaking, I'm imagining that you're going to organizations that want to have you come in to be an inspirational speaker. And do you speak to some younger groups, to the teenagers, or is your focus primarily adults?
So I don't really have a focus that way. I've been speaking to general groups. People typically will fill a room with 300, 400, 500 people. And these are all people that are just looking for a better life, a better way to live. And yes, a lot of times there's teenagers in the room and there's senior citizens in the room. There's a little bit of everything. It's always fun afterwards when people are coming up to say hello or to have me sign a book or do whatever, the range of people that are there. And I will say, I do love when the young people come up and they're excited about it and they love what they see and how they can apply it in their life. Because my gosh, to apply this stuff when you're young, oh, you got such a great life ahead of you, but
Yeah,
that being said,
advantage.
pardon me, sorry?
You have an advantage.
You
And
really do. Yeah.
It gives you the tools to be able to really mark and create the life that you want, and also eliminate that chatter that seems to come around and say, no, you can't do that. No, you'll never be, no, you'll never amount to anything. And have clear-cut goals, have clear-cut steps and action for you to take. And I am so glad that you put that in the book. It's just a phenomenal book. You had a really lofty goal the last time I talked to you about how many you were going to sell.
Yep.
What was that number?
So, well, so for some people, this would be a big number. For other people, it would seem like a small number. To me, it's a big number. So I am wanting to sell 100,000 copies of the book. And in my mind, Linda, I see once I hit 100,000 copies, that's the flashpoint. Let's say that it should snowball into many, many more. And my goal with that is not for income, because as you know, you don't get rich on selling a book.
No, you certainly don't. That's not what you're looking for.
My goal is to get it in as many hands as possible. And it's for psychic reasons. I just know the value I put in this book. And it's not because I wrote it. It's because it's everything that my father taught me and how I'm living my life. And I know if I can get it in that many hands, it's going to change lives. And that's a really powerful thing. I'm not there yet. And I still don't know how I'm going to get there yet, but I know I'm on my way. And I'm on my way in a pretty good way. And I'm just stepping out, doing whatever it takes.
Well, I can imagine all the organizations that are going to get that box of 100 books, and 100 books per box at a time will hit that goal. Bob, the influence that your dad left on you, and the fact that you're able to create that legacy of him through the child's eyes, is just an unbelievable gift. And I'm certain that you wish that you had seen and seen that to fruition with your dad. But I am certain that your dad is very, very much smiling and thinking about, okay, where are we going to go next, and where are we going to go speak, because we got more books to go sell.
Right. Well, yeah. Here's the nice thing. I have no regrets with anything that was said or wasn't said with my father. We did get to say everything we needed to say to each other.
Oh,
and I feel his presence. I know he sees what's going on. Even the title of the book came to me in the middle of the night. It was after I had a dream about him. So it's like, I call it what you will. I feel that's him coming through me in one way or the other. And it's a positive thing. And, like you say, I had a client, it was about a month and a half ago now. They bought over 700 copies of the book. And I was, wow, it was so impressive. And they bought it just to give away to all of their clients.
That's right. All you listeners out there, don't forget the gift of knowledge. It can't be kept to yourself. You've got to share it. So buy 2, buy 3, buy 5 of his books. Get out there. Go to Amazon. Brian, thank you so much for joining me today. I am just really, it's a unique and special gift of having so many similarities. My background with real estate and writing a book with a parent. And it's not lost on me the gift that you have and that you received from your dad's relationship.
Well, thank you, Linda. You know what? I really appreciate being here, and congratulations to you and your mother. That's a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So that's it. It looks like we have wrapped another story and another really incredible guest. And I just am so grateful. And honestly, go out and find that book. Get that book, buy 10, 15, 20, and give them out, because the knowledge and the quality of the information that's in there is like sitting and having conversations with your own parent that you wish you'd had. He's already had them. Thank you for joining me today. Join me again next week when we talk about money.
Do you like to talk about money? If you do and you'd like to be a guest, contact me at lindakaye360.com.